Designing a kitchen can be pretty complicated, so today I want to go over a high-level roadmap of the steps and the key elements that are involved.
I'm Michelle Dirksey, an interior designer based here in Seattle, Washington, and in this series I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know about interior design.
So the first thing that you need to do is think of the concept. So the concept is the look and feel. What is the vibe of the space? What do you want it to look like? And how do you want it to function? Easy way to do that is to research on Pinterest and save things that you're naturally drawn to. So don't necessarily look for solutions. Maybe look for solutions if you're working on your own, but if you're working with a designer, they will do the solutions for you. And you can see my other Pinterest video if you want help with that. Concept's the fun part. Next comes layout. So for layout, I want to make sure that you're looking at not just the overall footprint of the kitchen within the existing walls, but is there any other space that you could steal from or cut into that would actually make the kitchen function much better? So an example might be an adjacent pantry that is like a closet. Maybe you want to tear that out and make it a part of the kitchen. Or maybe you have a storage area that's adjacent, a closet you no longer need that is part of another room. Maybe you want to, steal that area and make it part of your kitchen so the footprint of your new kitchen can expand and you can have more cabinetry. Even if you're working with the existing footprint, sometimes small changes go a long way. So for example, at my own home, for my kitchen, I actually closed off one of the entrances so we could enter the kitchen from two sides, and it had kind of a peninsula, and that wasn't helping the kitchen layout, the functionality or storage, and it also wasn't helping in the adjacent room because it made it so when you came up the stairs you saw right into the kitchen, which I totally hated. And so by closing off that area, I had a new place for art, so when you walk in, you see a beautiful art piece by my husband. And then when you're in the kitchen, it's a more functional layout. So make sure that you're looking at where the cabinets are and where the walls are placed, even if you are working within that existing footprint. You can also think about windows or doors. Maybe you don't need that door to the deck where it is. Maybe the one that is 5 feet away is sufficient. Maybe you need more windows. So this is the most important thing to do at the beginning, is think about layout for both, access to the kitchen, windows, light, cabinetry layout. Getting the layout right will make all the difference. Once you have the layout of your kitchen, you can move on to the footprint of the cabinetry. So if you know where the walls are, you know where the doors and the access points are, you know where the windows are, now you can just decide where the footprint of the cabinetry is. And then once you've placed the footprint of the cabinetry, then you can do the wall views, the elevations. How wide are the cabinet doors? Are they doors or drawers? And really going into the details of the design of the kitchen cabinets. After you've come up with the layout for the cabinet, the footprint of them, where the seaming is, how wide each cabinet is, then you'll also want to think about the style of the cabinets and the doors. The first thing is, do you want them inset or full overlay? And what I mean by that is, do you want the doors to completely hide the cabinet box behind it, full overlay? Or do you want it to be inset so that the doors are within the cabinet box and you do see some of that cabinet box? I see full overlay as more modern because you're not seeing the cabinet box. It's not always the case. And then for something more traditional, I would say inset. The other thing to think about is the door or drawer style itself, whether it's inset or full overlay. What does it look like? It could be flat, and that's what I often do for a more modern, or it could be shaker, it could be modified shaker. I do that when it's kind of like a thinner version of shaker, or it could be something more traditional. So you have options for that regardless of whether it's inset or full overlay. So when designing your cabinetry, look at layout, look at inset, full overlay, door style, and then of course the door finish or the color. Of course you have to pick all of the plumbing as well. So what type of sink do you want? Do you want it undermount or overmount? I personally hate overmount. Farmhouse was big for a while. I've done that once or twice, but I don't know, it usually annoys me. And then, your faucet. Do you have a built-in soap pump? Are you going to do an Insta-Hot or a water filter? Do you need a built-in garbage disposal button? It's kind of like related to plumbing because it's on the sink. So you want to pick out all of those things ahead of time, and then you'll also want to draft them into the elevation, or at least confirm the heights, because you don't want to get an oversized faucet that then has a cabinet above and it doesn't fit. So make sure that you're looking at all the dimensions and placement before you buy things so that it will fit. Electrical items, obviously you need to think about lighting, where it's going, what it is lighting, how well it is lighting it, and then accent lighting. So I love to put a pendant over the sink, something decorative. Maybe you don't want any can lights, maybe you want semi-flush instead. And then also thinking about outlets. So are they in the backsplash randomly, or do you have certain items that you know will live in the corners of your kitchen countertop? And if so, maybe you have the outlets right behind it so that you don't see the cords running to the outlet. Or maybe you have a plug mold, which is an outlet strip that is hidden at the top underneath the cabinetry. And what's nice about that is that it has so many outlets on it, you always have access, it's easy. The downfall is that you'll always see the cord running up to it. So if you have something always plugged in, like your coffee maker or your KitchenAid, you'll always see that cord. And so in those instances, I try to plan ahead of time to have an outlet in the backsplash itself right behind it rather than the plug mold. Lastly, you'll want to think about switches. So where are the switches going into the kitchen, and what do they control? Are all of the lights on one switch? Are the accent lights on their own switch? Is the garbage disposal button a switch next to the sink on the backsplash, or is it a button on the counter? Those are all things you'll want to think about ahead of time, pick them in advance, plan ahead for their locations. Also hardware. Do you want knobs or pulls on your cabinetry and locating where it's going to go? Because if you don't locate it ahead of time, the installer will, and they'll just put it wherever they want. So make sure that you have located where you want that and picked it ahead of time and made sure that the finishes go with everything. Which brings us to our next item, finishes. So we need to think about finishes like paint, the cabinet doors, plumbing, the electrical items, but also countertops. And if you have a tile backsplash or a slab backsplash or a Tadillac backsplash like I did, you'll want to think about that, and also your flooring. It's also great if you can get samples of all of the different finishes that you'll be using so that you can put them all together, see how they speak to one another, and make sure that one company's black is similar enough to the other company's black. So for example, I have a Dornbracht faucet, and I think the pulls on my cabinetry are from M-Tech. I mean, they're both black, so they look fine together, but if they were both brass and one is unlacquered and one is lacquered, they could look completely different, and that could be fine, but it's nice to not have a surprise, so if you just know ahead of time what they're gonna look like together, that'd be great. Okay, so after you've done concept, you've looked at layout, you've designed your cabinetry layout, and you've picked all the items that you're going to see for your kitchen, the last thing you'll need to do is make sure that you're checking in with your contractor as the project is happening so that they're not editing something without you knowing. And so that if something comes up and it can't be designed in the way that you intended, that you can come up with a plan that you like. I hope all of this gives you a high-level idea of all of the steps involved in designing a kitchen so that you don't just say go to the contractor and then you're bombarded with all of these things that you need to do. My hope is that you can have a plan ahead of time before they even do demolition.